Before we get to the lymphoid organs, I want to share with you guys this diagram of a body. I will provide this printout for you tomorrow, ideally. There are various regions of the lymphatic system that you need to know. So don't bother writing any of this down now. I want you to just really pay attention, take this in. I'll give you a handout, perhaps identical to this tomorrow. First off, you have a high concentration of lymph nodes in your head and neck. These are called your cervical lymph nodes because what do you call those vertebrae that are in your neck? You recall? You have 7 of them. Cervical vertebrae. So the lymph nodes in your neck are referred to as cervical lymph nodes. You can probably feel them swollen when you're sick or you have some sort of infection because that's where a lot of immune cells hang out, is in your lymph nodes. The next region where you have a high concentration are your armpits. These are called your axillary lymph nodes. This is what I was talking about with the girls. You want to definitely control, you want to feel right around here if there's any lumps, because if a tumor can grow, it can metastasize, which means spread, and it gets to a lymph node. It's just like we showed last week, where if you got on the road outside playing high school, you could drive to Utah, you could drive to Alaska, you can drive anywhere. If a tumor reaches your lymph nodes, it can go anywhere in your body. You want to keep that from happening. Next, you have a high concentration of lymph nodes in your groin area. These are called your pelvic lymph nodes and your inguinal lymph nodes. So guys, if you were to, let's say, get a testicular tumor, you go to the doctor's going to check to see if it has spread to your lymph nodes. If it has, that's a cause for concern, because if it can do that, it can go to any other spot in your body. So the areas of your body, the main lymph node concentrations that you'll need to know are the inguinal lymph nodes, the pelvic lymph nodes, the axillary lymph nodes, and the cervical lymph nodes. Those are the ones I need you to know. Your head and neck, your armpits, and your groin and pelvic region. You have your spleen, which is exclusively on your left side. You only have one. And then you have your thymus. I want to talk about your thymus here for a minute before I get into it later. Does anybody know what the word atrophy means? Yeah. If you were to lay on a couch, like let's say you're in a coma and you're in a couch or a hospital bed for 5 years, your legs are going to be shriveled up. Your muscles have atrophied. Atrophy means they've weakened and they've deteriorated and maybe not even become usable anymore. People that are in a coma for years, they experience muscle atrophy. They just don't move. And so their muscles are weakened. The reason I bring this up is when you are a baby, your thymus is pretty active. It looks really large, but it's on your heart. And as you grow and you get bigger, your heart grows and gets bigger too. But the thymus doesn't. The thymus actually begins to atrophy as you get older. It's by the time you get to your age, it's really hard to find the thymus because it has not been growing with you. Your heart's been growing, your body's been growing, your muscles, your bones, but not your thymus. We'll talk about the thymus later today. I just wanted to make sure I threw that in there because it is on your mastering. All right, so that being said, let's get into the lymphoid organs for today. We're going to talk about the spleen, thymus, tonsils, and we'll even talk about an area of your intestine called the Peyer's patches. And we'll even mention your appendix. All of these have some sort of immune function. When you think of your lymphatic system, if you think of drainage, that is correct. But even more than drainage is immunity. If you had a defunct lymphatic system, you may not have a very good immune system. Okay, so let's discuss the first one, the biggest one, the spleen. Back in 2005 or 6, I think it was 2006, I mentioned this story to you before. Chris Sims was a quarterback for the Bucks, and it was the first or second game of the year. And he got just beaten up in that game. He got tackled and sacked. He just got destroyed. And after the game, he had to be rushed to Tampa General because his spleen was ruptured. They hit him so hard during the game, his spleen just ripped open. And he had an emergency splenectomy. Now, you can live a life without a spleen, but you'll probably have to be on some sort of immunosupportive drugs because it has some good immune function. You have one spleen. What side is it on, left or right? It's on your left side. It's about the size of your fist. Is a site for lymphocyte proliferation. This is the term I did not expect to teach you until tomorrow, but might as well teach it to you now. A lymphocyte is a lymphatic cell, but more specifically, it is an immune cell. You're going to be hearing the word lymphocyte a lot on Tuesday and Thursday. If you've ever heard of T cells and B cells, those are lymphocytes. I know you've heard of antibodies. Antibodies come from B cells, and B cells are a type of lymphocyte. We call them B lymphocytes. So you have B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes. The main role of the spleen is it serves as a blood cleansing organ. If you were to cut open the spleen, it looks really, really pulpy. It's like a pomegranate, in my opinion. It's just very pulpy, very juicy. It has a lot of blood that cycles through it because it basically is like a blood filter. It removes aged red blood cells. And aged platelets. It also removes foreign debris and pathogens. A pathogen is a disease-causing substance, like a virus or a bacteria or a fungus. It is also where red blood cells are formed in a fetus. So all of you, when you were still inside your mother, your blood, it's pumped by your cardiovascular system, but a lot of the red blood cells are formed in your spleen. All right. The spleen consists of two components. I'm going to show you a picture of spleen when we're done here. You have white pulp and red pulp. What type of cells do you think you would find in the white pulpy region? Yeah, the immune cells. Then you have the red pulp. which is what makes me think of a pomegranate when I see it. If you've never seen a pomegranate, I'll put an image up about that too, so you have something to think of. This is going to be mostly blood, which is worn out red blood cells. That's about it for the spleen. There's really not a lot to talk about. So we'll take a break from writing. I'll show you some pictures of the spleen. Give me a minute to catch up.
Why do they wash your spleen in your bottom?
She would know. Perhaps that's where the infection targets. All right, let's see. So here's just a little diagram of it. Kind of looks like a kidney. But you only have one. It's like very dark purple. So we can find an actual image. Well, there's a bison spleen. That's yummy. Real. Let's find real image of a spleen. There we go. You just see it's just very, very pulpy. If I can try to find spleen cross section. See, there's the anatomy of it. If you don't know what a pomegranate looks like, I think it's a great example. I cannot spell pomegranate. There we go. It looks like that. Yeah. It's just, look at that. Just really pulpy. That's what I think of when I think of a spleen. You cut it open and there's just a lot of pulp to it. Okay. Now, one other thing I'd just like to see, Chris Sims spleen. So there he is. He's on the field. I remember this. I was in college when it happened. He just got torn up. He's down on one knee, just getting annihilated in that game. Let's see. And he has a huge scar. Let's see if they actually have a picture of it. Nah, maybe not. Let's see. Splenectomy scar. Let's see if there's one here. Oh, yeah. There you go. He had something like that. They said he had a scar going from his belly button all the way to his chest. They had to open him up and remove the spleen because it was leaking. He got hit so hard that it just ripped open. So this would be called a splenectomy. Whenever you end a word with ectomy, it means to remove. Appendectomy, tonsillectomy, splenectomy, vasectomy. All right. Let's continue. Interesting that everyone, are there any boys that have had their tonsils removed? Only girls. That's all I've had all day so far. It's just girls. Well, I'm talking about a tonsil. You remove, yeah, you that's correct. You don't really remove anything. All right, let's get into the thymus. There's not a whole lot to talk about here. The thymus is located near the heart. It atrophies as we age. What does that mean? It breaks down. It doesn't disappear. It just breaks down and it does not become as useful as it once was. This is the site of T cell maturation. This is definitely on your mastering this weekend. What letter does thymus begin with? This is where T cells develop. What letter does bone marrow begin with? That's where B cells mature. So T cells are a type of very strong immune cells that you have. They're matured in your thymus. And just remember that thymus begins with the T. That's probably all you need to know. There's not much more to say about the thymus. It's just very, very bland. Let's move on to your tonsils. How many do you have? They're located near the opening of your pharynx. Your pharynx is the back of your throat. They're intended to catch pathogens from food or inhaled air. Now, there were 3 girls in here that said they don't have their tonsils anymore. It's not like you don't have an immune system anymore. You have plenty of other safeguards in place where you can have your tonsils removed and you can live a perfectly normal life without it. Lymphocytes congregate in your tonsils. Now, I'm not going to ask you guys to do this, but if you wanted to, you could. If you were to ask someone to open their mouth and say, ah, and you have to say, ah, don't just do this. You have to go, ah. When you do that, it actually opens up your throat more and it depresses your tongue so you can actually see back there. If you were to do that, here's what you would see. Anybody know what that little punching bag is called in the back of your throat? That's called your uvula. Helps to prevent you from choking, your gag reflex. Here's some teeth. Not the best teeth drawer. Here's your tongue. Your tonsils are right back here. You can definitely see them if you looked at your neighbor and said, ah, those are your tonsils. Those girls in the back don't have anymore. So you would see nothing there. Now, I'm going to show you a picture of just normal healthy tonsils and then infected tonsils. If you had to have your tonsils removed, that would be a tonsillectomy. Yes.
What are like tonsil stones?
Pockets of tissue and cells that have built up and they were trapped inside and they aren't able to cycle and filter through. All right, so let's take a look at some healthy tonsils and then some infected ones. There's one. Here's another. See, one is really maybe a little swollen. Oh, there's a good one. One here and one here. Now let's look at infected. They're going to be swollen and red and look kind of gross. There you go. Those are definitely swollen. They're inflamed. See, they have infected tissue all over them. Those probably need to be removed. Ugh. It's a lot of infection. Mariah, did you have to have ice cream for like several days? No solid foods? Yeah, that's a common recovery food. It's just ice cream. Solid food can be painful. All right, let's go back. And I have 2 more to get to you guys today, and that'll be it. We have about 10 minutes. Peyer's patches and the appendix. Peyer's patches, they are areas of lymphoid tissue located on the small intestine. They're kind of like the tonsils of your gut. And we have not done the digestive system yet. So if you guys are a little ignorant about it, that's totally understandable. I'm going to try to draw it here a little for you. You don't need to draw this. Okay, here's a quick digestive system lesson for you. When you swallow food, it goes into your mouth, then down your esophagus, which leads to your stomach. It enters your stomach right here. And then it just winds through your intestines like this. What comes first after your stomach, your small intestine or your large intestine? Anybody know? The reason why it's called the small intestine is because it has a smaller diameter. If you look at me, this is probably about the diameter of your small intestine. It is smaller, but your small intestine is longer. But we don't call it the long intestine. We call it the small intestine because its diameter is less than your large. Right here on your right side is where your large intestine meets your small intestine. And then you have your large intestine where food goes up, across, and down. And then it goes out your body through your anus. You have Peyer's patches located near the end of your small intestine. So all these little areas I'm drawing with gray, those are just Peyer's patches. They're just minuscule little areas where you have extra lymphatic tissue that have immune cells. And then last for today, we have your appendix. No one in here said they've had their appendix removed. That would be appendicitis. And then you would have an appendectomy. It is located on your right side. Where the small intestine meets the large intestine. It is called the large intestine just because its diameter is greater. I think your large intestine is probably just 4 feet long, somewhere like that. And your small intestine is 16 feet long. But we don't name them based on their length. We name them based on their diameter. Your large intestine has a larger diameter. This little guy right here that I highlighted in green, that's your appendix. It looks like a little rat tail on your right side. It is considered a vestigial structure. This means that once upon a time in early humans, or maybe animals before humans, the appendix actually had a purpose. But over the centuries and the millenniums, we have changed our diet significantly. We cook food. We have artificial food, like corn is not natural. Wheat is not natural. We have artificial selection where we've generated a lot of food that we now eat all the time. So our diets have changed. And it's possible that the appendix was once used, but now no longer really is. And you can have your appendix removed and live a perfectly normal life without it. This is another example of atrophy. The appendix doesn't get used much, so it just kind of shriveled up. However, it does have a minor immune function. There can be a high concentration of lymphatic tissue. This would prevent bacteria from entering your large intestine. But as I said, you can have your appendix removed and you'll be fine. It's not a major immune function. All right, we will stop there.